So in my second of 2 video blogs regarding how to go and connect more impactfully with people, especially here in the COVID virtual world, I'd love to share with you a conversation and some thoughts that I had around a conversation that I had with executive coach Brad Lance. He really goes and works deeply in terms of mindfulness and being able to go and rewire some aspects of the brain to go and unlock some different things that are keeping individuals and teams from reaching their potential. His company MindSync does some marvelous stuff to be able to go and help unlock the potential within people so they're able to go and just run through those floodgates into new possibilities. And the essence of one component of our conversation was the difficulty that people have connecting over Zoom, over video, because as a social species, we are hardwired to be able to go and draw connection and energy from the personal interactions that we have with one another. It's just common science. We all know it, the energy that is in a gymnasium for a basketball game or at a concert. I was at a U2 concert at TCF Bank Stadium in Minneapolis, and the energy with rain and lightning going off in the distance, the energy was so palpable because there were 60,000 people all just going at it. So we know that we can go and transfer and gain energy from other human beings because we transmit it as well as receive it. However, under the Zoom virtual world, that's been a lot more difficult. We don't have the tools to be able to go and set ourselves in that, to go and get that energy through a computer screen. We haven't figured it out yet. We might not ever go and figure out how to go and transmit energy through another medium. Maybe we've done it over telephone and we didn't really realize it because you're hearing the voice, but it's been really difficult. And as Brad was talking to me about the neuroscience around it, I got to thinking about the last 18, 21 months of this Zoom virtual world. And I wondered how I actually went through the process, because with Brad, I was really working hard from my end to be able to go and feel connection from Brad, to be able to go and have body mannerisms or changes in my tone and pace of speaking that look to go and engage him. And it made me respect the concept of what I actually do. I actually really work hard to look at the camera when I talk. So when people happen to be looking at the screen and at me, it looks like I'm looking at them. So I face the problem of not actually being able to go and see their body language when I'm speaking to be able to get that. But I've made the conscious choice to be able to look them in the eyes when I speak. And that's one thing I know I consciously go and do. However, I think I try and generate internally the feelings of connection that I would generally get in a face-to-face interaction, just to be able to try and get their energy, get their viewpoints in, and figure out how to communicate on their frequency more impactfully. And I know, and I've talked about this with my previous employer, Orgometrics, in the podcast that I did about how leaders can go and lead differently in a virtual world because it's been very difficult for them with one leg of the stool taken away, the ability to be there. Management by being there, by walking around, that's not there. So how can leaders actually go and help drive productivity and engagement and culture in this virtual world. And I talked about some different aspects of actually just having some personal conversations, taking time to go and interact on a work, but also a non-work basis with each individual that reports to them. Or in meetings to be able to have some time to be able to go and talk about things that were normal course of conversations, both in meetings and by the water cooler and in the halls, to try and simulate some of that. And this conversation with Brad allowed me to be able to go and build some nuance into my thought process on that, to the point where I'd like to suggest to you that in conversations that you happen to have, step back, remove yourself, be mindful instead of the autopilot that we talked about in the previous conversation, in the presentation that Luis Moreno provided, from going from autopilot to mindfulness. Step back a little bit. Don't just go through the motions of talking on Zoom, and contemplate each individual being in the room with you. And that conversation is actually real. I brought up the aspect to Brad when I talked with him about the book, The Inner Game of Tennis. He's a golf coach as well on the mindfulness side. And the concept that I learned when I read this book when I was a young racquetball player, teenager, about how the brain does not distinguish between things that happen in one's imagination and what happens in reality. So I brought up the example how someone could shoot 50 free throws in their mind and make every one of them, and the brain won't know the difference from 50 free throws actually physically taken. I think that you can do that here in conversations, that you can step back and envision that you're having these personal connections, conversations with energy flowing, and your brain won't know the difference. I personally feel energy when I do this actively during Zoom conversations. My tone becomes a little bit different. I probe in questions and in conversations to be able to go and find more truth, get to yes. I'd love to hear back from you on, if you're trying this, how that works. It would be really interesting to get your feedback. So, connecting our last episode, going from autopilot to mindfulness, you have to be really mindful in Zoom conversations to be able to go and step back, which is the aspect of respecting. How can you serve and love yourself enough to try and find that emotional connection through the virtual world? And through that process, you can go and bring more energy out of you and hopefully those around you. And you can even talk about this with the people that you speak to on your team, outside your team, on how we can try and build some more connection and see what happens. Get some feedback on it. Analyze it. Are there some changes in the interactions that you happen to notice over time? It would be an interesting social experiment because, quite honestly, we will probably not ever go back to full 5 days a week in the office interacting with one another. It just may not happen ever again. The technology is there to be able to do some things. The benefits for individuals to go and work from home and not have to drive that time back and forth to work, it may be difficult to be able to go and get to that 5 days a week. So figuring out how to have productive, connected conversations in the virtual world will set you apart as a leader and will set teams apart on how they're able to go and get things done and fulfill the mission. Something to think about. If you like what we have going on here, give us a like, subscribe to the channel so you can go and get some more information. When videos pop up, you'll be able to go and get some detail on that. Send me a note. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks for taking the time to visit. I really appreciate it. Until next time, cheers.